You're hanging out in the House of Sunny podcast, where it's always sunny, mostly because of your host, comedian and YouTuber, Sunny Loman. Want to know what Sunny and her friends are thinking about this week? Well, here she is, Sunny Loman.
Hey everybody, welcome to the House of Sunny podcast. I'm here with Doug from The Rational Capitalist, and today we're going to talk about Britney Spears. Oops, I did it again. Okay, that is so cliche. I don't know why I said that.
You want to start over?
That's the lamest intro ever.
No, it's not. It's the best.
Okay, so now to really get in Britney mode, I would be getting naked and pulling my underwear down and stuff, but I won't be doing that. What we're going to do is she came out with, that's her typical thing. Mm-hmm. And we'll get into it. So we're going to do that. And then we're going to talk about, actually, you only are going to do that today.
I don't want to scare the viewers.
You want to see Doug in his bathing in a little bikini, pulling it down provocatively, pretending like he's about to take it off. Stay tuned. But for the rest of the show, we're going to talk about conservatives and fighting. We've had conversations like this before, but something kind of sparked our interest. I'll show you that. And then I wanted to talk about this Project Veritas video that came out too. And we're also going to talk a little bit about what the heck is happening in Europe. I don't have a lot to say about that. Doug, you probably have more since you're involved in investments and stuff, but I saw a video this morning and I just want to play it because it's heartbreaking what's going on in Europe right now. And people here are not aware. I don't think you're not seeing this in our media. I mean, not even fringe media is talking about it too much because we have our own problems, but okay, so I'm going to play something there, but so let's start out with Britney Spears. Everybody knows about 15 years ago, she was put under conservatorship with her dad in charge. And I think we all watched this. It seemed like she was having a mental breakdown at the time. She shaved her hair off. She was yelling at paparazzi with I think it was an umbrella and hitting their car or something. I can't remember. She seemed to be going a little nuts and she had some weird people around her and everybody was saying, oh, she's on drugs. She's got problems. They hauled her off to a hospital. They kept her there for a couple of weeks. Her dad then gained control over her entire life for 15 years. And she only recently was given back control over her life, her money, and just her day-to-day, whether or not even her health, what she ingests in terms of food and drugs, medical drugs, who she hangs out with. I didn't realize this, but she wasn't able to even watch a movie without somebody granting permission. So that's the life of an adult woman. That's the life she was living. And I think a lot of people weren't aware of how bad it was. But there was this whole Free Britney movement, and they were very concerned about her because she started to look like a freaking hot mess. And she still looks like a hot mess, but they were right. She was suffering, and she has for the first time released a discussion of that suffering. She kind of explains what had happened to her and what was going on with her behind closed doors. This is a 20-minute video. It's not even close to the whole story. But when I listen to it, I want to share it with you guys. I think it's of interest. I mean, it's not.
We're not going to listen to all 20 minutes, though.
No, I've got some clips set aside that I think are the most interesting parts. And what surprised me, I mean, we'll get into it. Let's play it first.
Hold on. As a novice to the world of Britney Spears, because you said everyone knows this. I mean, I knew something weird was going on, but I just chalked it up to just typical Hollywood craziness.
Yeah.
No, she's not really being enslaved. I mean, it's not like she's literally in a cage or something, someone's actually, and it sounds like you're saying, no, she kind of was somehow they gained control through the courts of her.
Yes. And I mean, that's the thing too.
She was committed or something mentally?
Yeah, she was I guess they call it Baker acted or something. She was considered basically incompetent to manage her own life. And her father was given complete control over her.
And a court did this.
A court did this. And
wow.
And
she has a kid, no?
She has 2 sons.
And who got control of the kids?
Her ex-husband, who just did a 60-minute special, like
that
bashing
DJ
her.
Dude? That weird
dancer. He was a dancer in her entourage, and she married him and had a couple kids with him. And, you know, where I know he's like not a good guy. I mean, like he seems like white trash anyway, but she kind of does too, frankly. But where I know that he's a bad person is that would you do a 60-minute special for an hour bashing the mother of your 2 sons, talking about what a shitty mom she is and just bashing her upside and one side and down the other a month after she's been freed from this lockdown that she's been in for 15 years.
I have some divorced friends that would probably do a 60 minutes, maybe a 90-minute special on that. I wouldn't, but I'm still married.
She's a famous person. So, and you have kids. You have to think about the impact of these things on your children. Mm-hmm. And he obviously just did it for fame and money. They probably paid him a lot of money for this. And I think it's shitty. So I don't believe a word of it. I think he had to hype it and make it as bad as it could be. And is she the perfect mother? No. Is she a little trashy? Yes. But there are a lot of trashy people in this world who have their kids, and nobody's taking their kids away from them. So
you don't deserve to be enslaved for being a little trashy.
Right? I mean, you're not perfect. Listen, if that were the case, we'd all have had our moments where we're enslaved, right? Because we've done something kind of imperfect and wrong and inappropriate. So, okay. So that's kind of the setup. I didn't really want to give my conclusion about her being enslaved. If she were crazy, this would have been a good thing, right?
Yeah.
This is of interest. I mean, I know that people who listen to my channel, they primarily listen for politics and stuff. And I think they like the Royal Report. Let's hope you guys like the Royal Report.
Of course.
It makes it a little lighthearted. It's right. This is interesting to me from just how does this even happen? Especially because I think we all trust the courts. And now here we are post-COVID, and I don't trust any of these people anymore. So
I don't think anyone trusts the courts. I don't.
So back then, 15 years ago, I might have said, well, they wouldn't have done this to her. It's Britney Spears, for God's sake. She's the most famous woman in the world. You can't do this to her if it's not true, right?
And if they can do this to her, they could do it to anyone.
Yeah. So anyway, let's listen to the first part of this recording. The first clip is her talking about that day that they sent a SWAT team to her house to get her. Yeah.
Maybe she had the Trump files.
Right. Oh, hang on. I got to make sure I'm sharing the sound here. I always screw this up. It always takes me a second.
I might do a dance while you're doing that.
We need a producer.
When it started,
okay.
I was extremely young. I remember a lot of my friends texting me and calling me, and we were extremely close, and they wanted to see me, but by what had happened, I honestly still to this day don't know what really I did, but the punishment of my father, I wasn't able to, see anyone or like anything. And you have to imagine none of it made sense to me. I literally spoke in a British accent to a doctor to prescribe my medication, and 3 days later, there was a swab team in my home, 3 helicopters. And
ignore that.
I remember my mom's best friend and my 2 girlfriends. We had a sleepover the night before. They held me down on a gurner. And again, none of it made sense. Literally the extent of my madness was playing chess with, when it was playing chase with paparazzi, which is still to this day one of the most fun things I ever did about being famous. So I don't.
She's like, I was playing chase with paparazzi and people thought that was crazy, but that was actually fun. She's like, I don't know. I was having a good time. I wasn't crazy. I was messing with them. And she was talking to a doctor and spoke in a British accent the whole time.
Okay. Is she, it almost sounds like she's trying to speak a little bit in a British accent, but why was she speaking in a British accent to the doctor?
Probably just like being a dork. You know, when I was a waitress, when I was like 19 years old, I worked at a cocktail bar and I would put on a British accent and serve people in a British accent just to make it kind of interesting. And also my tips were bigger if I was foreign for some reason. And so I would often do that. Just for fun. I mean, I didn't mean anything by it. I was just kind of goofing off. So,
but I'm just going to say, like, I don't know anything about this. She sounds a little crazy to me right now. That's the vibe I'm getting.
Keep listening.
Okay.
Know what was so harmful about that. But I remember my mom was sitting on the couch and she said, "We've heard people are coming here today to talk to you. We should probably go, to a hotel or something." And I never really understood what she meant. I didn't believe her. Like, is a lawyer coming here? Who is coming here? Then 4 hours later, there were over 200 paparazzi outside my house videotaping me through a window of an ambulance holding me down on a gurmer. I know now it was all premeditated. A woman introduced...
Okay, so that's her just explaining what happened to her that day and not really understanding what she did wrong.
Yeah.
Okay, and here's her. This is also interesting.
Anywhere. My first job after the 2 weeks of being hospitalized and completely traumatized out of my mind, I did a TV show called How I Met Your Mother, and then I started working on an album called Circus. And started working right away. All I did.
So I just want to highlight this. So she's hospitalized for being crazy. She's determined to be incompetent, and she's in the hospital for 2 weeks. That's a really long time to be in the hospital. I've been in the hospital for 2 weeks. It is traumatic. And to be in the hospital and told you're crazy versus, like, in my case, I was just sick. But to be told I'm crazy and you can't get out, you're nuts, you're going to stay in the hospital, and they probably force medicated her. And then her dad's given control of her stuff. I mean, would you get out of there not a little bit freaked out about what's going on? And then right after that, she does this TV show, How I Met Your Mother. And I remember when that happened, she did just a cameo. She played herself. And she rocked it. It was so funny and it was really well done. And the reviews were great. And everyone was saying, wow, she did such a great job. She's really funny. She could get her own show, she did a great job. Then she starts working on an album. And before you know it, she's touring. And I remember at the time people were saying, if she's crazy, should she be touring? Should she be touring?
Right.
And she makes this point in this audio that she was working constantly and succeeding and earning all this money, and people were calling her incompetent the whole time. And she was kept in this position through fear. I mean, they were using fear and manipulating her. And, like any kidnapped person or any, you have to imagine the mentality of like a prisoner and how you would go nuts and you would end up kind of being really dependent on your jailer and feeling like you can't live without them. And
it's like Stockholm syndrome.
Totally. So this girl has been through 15 years of not having any independence and restricted to the point that she can't even watch a movie she wants to watch. She's 40 and she's just gotten back the power to watch a movie she wants to watch. So if she seems a little crazy, like, I get it, but actually I felt like if she's crazy, how can she do this lucid, articulate 20-minute video about what happened to her? And okay, we're going to go on here about her talking about.
This is raising a lot of questions though that are, I don't know if she answers, but.
Yeah. I mean, she obviously doesn't get into everything that happened.
Yeah. Cause I mean, there were doctors at this hospital, right? She has a lawyer, presumably.
She didn't have a lawyer. She didn't have a lawyer. The lawyer was the Britney estate, which was controlled by her father.
Oh,
so her claim is that her dad is the guy behind all of this, that he wanted control over her life and her money, that he was always controlling as she was growing up. And that, yeah, he's just a psychopath who took control of his famous daughter's life and worked her like a slave until she was able to get free. And the only reason that she says this in this video, if it weren't for the Free Britney movement and these people drawing attention to the whole thing, she finally got a lawyer. People were starting to sneak her information and phone numbers and things that she could contact a lawyer who was wanting to take the case and stuff. So it was at that moment when she finally got a lawyer that started the chain of her getting free. Now, she had many instances of being in court where she could say, I'm being held against my will, blah, 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 right? But the problem is she was under the influence of her dad and dependent on him. And I heard another interview where she said, well, she wrote this down. She said that they threatened her with not seeing her children. So they used that to make her go perform and do all this other stuff and make money for the estate. It's a really tragic situation. Really,
she's
really
obviously
tragic.
and she's not very bright. I mean, that's for and
she's
being abused. I mean, she's been this sort of like starlet since she was young, and so she's in this crazy world, and she's sort of like semi-abused, and it's just it's just a sick situation. That
it's a sad story.
You see this all the time too with these Hollywood kids.
She doesn't know the word gurney. Like, she didn't have an education.
Yeah, she's not smart.
She talks later about, well, she's been also for 15 years completely isolated, not allowed to watch any movies, and just whoever she's surrounded by are the only people that she's interacting with. And maybe a lot of those people are trashy people, dancers, stuff like that, like street trash that are good at dancing, that kind of thing. All right, last little clip here. Toward the end of this whole thing, she was put into a hospital for 6 months.
Whoa.
What? For some reason, I started to get a spark back. I remember recording Glory, and for some reason, I think producing and making music, and I went to this little Spanish.
By the way, if she's crazy, could she write and produce music? Could she do that?
Well, think of all the bands that are totally wasted and strung out that make pretty good records.
Do they not have a right to their independence?
Well, I mean, they can produce things,
But I guess, like, how far gone? I think you have to be insane to have your rights taken away. You have to literally be a harm to yourself.
Yeah.
You not just be like an idiot or harming yourself long term by taking drugs or things like that. You have to be someone who's going to go jump off a bridge imminently.
Yeah.
House, and I got the fire back in my eyes for some reason, and it was at the end of recording Glory, and my son named it, and things started kind of taking a turn because I started getting more confidence just for myself. And I think with confidence, people kind of like, oh wait, what's going on now? Like, she's speaking up a little bit more, but it might not be particularly a good thing if I'd been quiet for 15 years. I think with confidence comes enlightenment, which makes you think better. And that's the last thing they wanted me to do, is to actually be better, because then who would be in control then? But it was really tricky because I had to just play this role that everything was okay all the time, and I had to go along with it because I knew they could hurt me. So I'm sitting here, like, my friends all drinking alcohol and having fun in these parties, and had no cash. I literally felt like a nun. My girlfriends from home came to visit me in a spa, and I couldn't even walk into the spa, and they had their feet doing pedicures in the water, and the 3 ices of bottles of champagnes before my show just sitting there. And I wasn't even acknowledged by them, my own hometown friends, when they would come to Vegas. And it was just, it was demoralizing, I will say. You also have to understand, it's like, 15 years of touring and doing shows, and I'm 30 years old under my dad's rules. And all of this is going on, and my mom's witnessing this, and my brother is witnessing, and my friends are witnessing it, and they all go along with it. And I'm like, how am I the one working here and doing all this, but I don't get the side things that, the good stuff, I want to be able to play. I want to be able to have fun.
Wow, she sounds like a
none of it makes sense to me. Well, the last show in Vegas ended 2017. I went on tour, which of tour I was forced to do, but I was supposed to do a new show. So the new show came along. I rehearsed, I think maybe 4 days ago. I don't really remember, but I went to one of the rehearsals and I said no to a dance move. I was like, no, can we do that? I don't want to do this. And then I just remember everything got really weird and quiet, and all the directors and producers went in the back room and just spoke. And that was it. And I was like, well, I don't know what's going on. So we all just kind of like, what happened? And then the next day, I was told that I had to be sent away to a facility, and that I was supposed to say on my Instagram the reason why is because my dad is sick and I need treatment, which was, I didn't want to ever go there. I remember my dad calling me on the phone, and I was crying, and I was like, why are you guys doing this? Like, what? And I just remember him saying, it's in your hands. You have to listen to the doctors. The doctors are going to tell you what to do. I can't help you now. And I remember his last words were, now, you don't have to go, but if you don't go, we're going to go to court, and there'll be a big trial, and you're going to lose. I have way more people on my side than you. You don't even have a lawyer, so don't even think about it. So I did it.
Whoa.
I went to the place. I was scared out of my mind. And none of it, again, made any sense of what they were doing to me. And again, I haven't wanted to share this because it's unbelievably offensive, sad, abusive. And honestly, would anybody believe me? I remember the main thing of when I was in that place, that my heart felt like it was frozen, like it was stuck inside, and I wanted to scream and I wanted to get out. And I think by a needle and thread, it was the breathing peacefully inward that I missed the most. I felt like I was in a state of shock, almost like when an old person feels helpless and they're literally going through some sort of shock treatment and they can't relax their body because they don't have the answers of why they can't have their own keys to their car and put it in the ignition and walk outside, and their own security guards at every door saying they can't go. Sitting down, drawing 6 galls of blood every week.
Vials. She means vials.
Weak as hell.
Balls?
And then calling, and my family is in Destin at my beach house.
This
It
is
didn't
so
make
crazy.
sense. The main thing I to this day, I kind of stopped believing in God at that time because...
So she says she's put into this facility and her family is at her beach house, enjoying her beach house while she's in this like facility.
Wow.
And, I think she's a little bit crazy right now. I don't blame her. I think that what she's been through would make anybody nuts, actually. Yeah. And she has not had any adulthood at all. So, so sad. And really, the thing that struck me is like, okay, does she sound messed up? Does she sound, I mean, she doesn't sound educated. She sounds kind of ignorant. She says weird things. She mixes her words up. She mixes metaphors by a needle and thread. Like she doesn't even know how to use that like common metaphor.
But she's been a slave her whole life. I mean, what do you expect?
Yeah. And that's not grounds to enslave somebody. I like everything I'm hearing is just, it's almost like, well, if she's not perfect, then it was okay that they took her life from her. And I don't know, there are a lot of people who would fail that test. I know a lot of people who are shitty people, who are self-destructive, who are mean to their kids, to their wives, their husbands, whatever. I mean, there's plenty of people doing crappy stuff, even like minor theft, even people committing crimes, ignorant, stupid trash committing crimes have more rights than the most famous woman in the world, Britney Spears.
Well, that probably made it harder for her in a way, because when you're that famous, you'd think it would be easier for her, but actually you can really isolate someone like that, because you just say, well, no one can come near her. She's too big of a star. You put gates and stuff and walls around, and
no, that's
she's
true.
Only could be seen by a lawyer and a couple people. And
there was a lot of money available to hire security to box her in.
Yeah. And he could obviously buy the judge off. I mean, he could buy everybody off, and everyone's on the gravy train and they're just keeping her dumb and locked away, and she's the meal ticket.
Yeah, I guess the lawyer is being accused of kind of unethical behavior around this. They made millions off of this situation, and they just kept this thing going in perpetuity, basically. And
well, how many times have we seen this though, with like Michael Jackson and people like that? I mean, these people get isolated. They have a few people around them for some reason that are willing to take advantage of them. They're managers, and like a manager and an agent and a doctor. Yeah. They're giving them pills and drugs, and they're just, these people are meal tickets for this entourage.
Yeah.
And it's terrifying, man.
It almost makes me think fame is not worth it. Like, I don't know. What do you have to be really, really stable and self-possessed, and maybe have a really good family in order to get through fame. When I see what happens within my own family, like say when there's a death, people who are good people having fights and getting, money really upsets people. Property and money really gets everybody kind of riled up. Or like, let's say you have a friend and you go into like a little tiny business thing with your friend. I almost try really hard not to do that, or ever when I involve money, because it's so, because when you disagree, it has the potential to really bust up your relationship.
Yeah.
And I think, money just is, I don't know. So if it is still shocking to me that we all sort of watched this happen, and that it happened in plain sight, and that they got away with it for as long as they did. And that woman is permanently damaged. You don't ever get over.
Have you ever heard anyone say like, man, fame's been great. It's really been great for me. It's really worked out. I'd say like 100% of people say they regret it, or they don't want it.
Only when they're kind of bullshitting, like when they're trying not to sound like a whiny bitch. So they'll say, I'm really grateful for all that fame has given me, but there is a dark side, but it's fine. I mean, who am I to complain, because I have all of this, that, and the other thing. It's usually that kind of, it's usually said in that way.
There's a movie that Woody Allen did called Celebrity with Leonardo DiCaprio. And it's actually it's very dark. But it's a very good movie called Celebrity.
What happens in it, is it?
Well, it just shows the real dark side of celebrity, and DiCaprio is like just a totally out of control asshole, horrible person, and just the sycophants and the people around it, and the adulation for these people that behind the scenes are just really awful, dark, disturbed people. It's just, and what it does to you, it's just, I thought that was kind of a more realistic portrait of it.
I totally want to watch that movie now.
That's
right up my alley.
I wouldn't want that. I wouldn't wish that on anyone.
Yeah, I think that it's probably really hard. This is why I would never run for office, even though people always tell me I should.
Yeah, man.
No, thanks. I'll take my 1,000 a week listeners. Thanks, everybody out there.
You're like
Thank
a
you
guru.
to all of my little fans, my small, tiny club. All right. So let's talk about the UK now. I'm just going to show this. So the UK, you guys, is collapsing. Like their economy is collapsing right now because of their green energy policies. Let me go to this one first. Let's listen to this guy.
Kyle
that are
Bass
ESG.
What'd you say?
Kyle Bass is great.
Okay.
These policies that are ESG driven and morally driven, that we should convert everything to alternative energy tomorrow.
What just happened there? Sorry about that, guys. We'll start it over.
Driven and morally driven, that we should convert everything to alternative energy tomorrow, are going to end up starving the poor children of the world. Like it's and killing many of them. So it's counterintuitive that could actually happen, and that's what we're seeing, Melissa, with the prices at $1,000 a megawatt hour, 1,000 euros a megawatt hour. You're going to see real problems in Europe. I can't believe it's not on the front page of every paper every day.
Right? I can't believe it's not on the front page of it. Now listen to this lady. This is in the street. Man on the street.
I'm a dinner lady in Lancashire, and just before the summer holidays, when the cost of living crisis really started kicking off, I've just noticed I spend as much time taking food away from children as I do serving it. And to be honest, it's not what I took the job for. I never dreamt that I'd be having to tell children, you can't have that, you've no money on your account. And it used to be, when I first started a year ago, okay, once a month, there might, parents forget to put money on at the beginning of the month, and you get that. But now you're talking 10 to 15 children a shift every day, every single day. And I'm saying, you can't have that, there's no money, And it's breaking my heart. You see them, they're in a queue full of all their peers and other school children, and it's humiliating for them. It's so humiliating. They just look at you like, well, what am I going to eat? And it's like, I can't give you anything. I'm sorry, and I'm just dreading going back to work. I'm dreading October. And to be honest, it's getting to the point where I'm just like, I don't even think I can do this job anymore. I didn't take the job on to starve children. I'm sorry.
Oh my God. Doesn't that just give you a lump in your throat? Mm-hmm. I didn't take this job to starve children. Because she's a lunch lady. Sorry.
No, that's what's happening.
I don't normally cry on my own show. That's just incredible that that's happening in the UK.
Yeah.
This is the West. Fucking environmentalists. They're murdering people.
Yeah, this is the globalist environmentalist elite perpetrating their plan to starve people and kill human beings on the altar of green energy. They've been shutting down fossil fuel sources. They shut down. Germany was about to shut down its nuclear facilities. I think they've since gotten away from that. They've taken every measure possible to starve themselves of energy when it's readily available.
And that's so abstract maybe to some people, but that literally means heating your home. And it means, in this case, kids showing up to school with no food,
Right. And this is as
you can't eat oil, but that's what creates the wealth that buys the food. And so
food prices have exploded. They're trying to, we've seen with the Dutch farmers, they're going after nitrogen and fertilizer. So the price of fertilizers have spiked.
They're still
literally
doing
trying to shut down a third of the farms.
They're double downing on this ESG stuff. They have to be stopped. They have got to be stopped. And even if they are stopped, there's going to be damage. They've already gone too far. There's no preventing the catastrophe, but it could be minimized and turned around. But it's going to take time for them to get the right leadership to do that. The UK is so environmentalist focused. Everything they do is about conserving. If you go over there, like every light switch, every freaking water faucet, everything is, you can just tell the whole place is obsessed with.
It's a religion.
Yeah. And I know a lot of foreign young women because of the au pair program that I used for a while, and they all came into my house vegetarian for environmentalist reasons. They thought it was the moral thing to do, and that is spreading here in the US now. It's horrible. It's horrible what's happening. So that's happening now. And the lockdowns didn't help. I mean, their whole economy is right, Doug. I mean, what's going on? It's the lockdowns, the green energy policies, and then this whole thing with Russia.
Well, yeah, it's supply chain driven as well because of, I think the world's undergoing a huge transition right now. We went through this globalist period for, I don't know, 30 years, 40 years, where all these supply chains got coordinated between mostly from China and emerging markets to the West. We got cheap goods, we get slave labor that's kept prices low. And we've gotten cheap energy from Russia. We had cheap energy in the United States before the current administration. And so all those things contributed to a very sort of good standard of living, low prices, plentiful goods and abundance of everything. Cheap fossil fuel energy is what drives civilization in industry and makes everything cheaper. And in the last few years, what's happened? First you had a supply chain disruption due to the pandemic and to the attempts, I guess, to the geopolitical concerns around trade with China and the sort of like trade war stuff. But once the ESG policies, at the same time you've had supply disruption and now concerns about the geopolitics with China and emerging markets. You've also had massive inflation of the money supply during COVID. While people were being locked down and told not to work and stay at home, the government was printing trillions of dollars.
Right.
They've clamped down on through ESG policies, have mostly through a company called BlackRock, especially. They're like one of the biggest investors on Wall Street. They're basically invested in everything. And they've pushed this ESG, which is very real. There are companies now, fossil fuel companies are essentially being starved of capital. So not only are energy supplies tight, but no one's investing in fossil fuels anymore. They're all being basically told, why would you invest any fossil fuel capital, any capital that you invest in fossil fuels? That's a 10, 15, 20-year return to, drill for oil, to explore for oil, all the capital and the equipment and the energy you need to find new sources of energy. That costs money and it takes time. And so if the government is basically saying, we're going to outlaw this stuff and we're going to mandate, electric cars or whatever, or, solar power or whatever it is in a few years, why would you invest in that? Not only that, but investors are being shamed and prevented through ESG policies and endowments and institutions, pension funds, university endowments, and so on. They're all saying, no. What's your ESG rating? And an ESG rating means you can't invest in Exxon or Chevron or, oil drillers or whatever. And so anyways, the whole industry is being starved of capital. At the same time, you had the war in Ukraine, which Germany, for example, their whole manufacturing base, or most of their manufacturing base, is built around Russian gas supplies.
Did you see that clip going around of Trump warning them, you're going to be dependent on Russia? That's not good. And the Germans are sitting there like smirking and laughing at him like he's a buffoon.
Yeah, because he was saying, why do we have NATO where American taxpayers are paying you to protect Germany and Europe from Russia? And you guys are doing Russian gas deal.
And
this doesn't make sense.
Freaking Dieter dweebs are over there going, what an idiot. What a dweeb. I'm so much smarter than him.
And
Orange man, idiot.
And our media was similarly mocking him and calling him a rube and everything else.
Yeah.
And so, they depend on Russia. They depend on other sources of oil. So now what's happening is Russia is selling gas to China. China is marking up the gas and selling it to Europe. So they're getting the Russian gas, but they're getting it at 2 or 3x the price, and they're enriching both China and Russia. In the meantime, we're exporting LNG, liquefied natural gas, from the US to Europe. So our natural gas prices in the US are near all-time highs. So our utility bills now are going to go up massively as a result of this.
In the US there.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Natural gas prices have only been this high a couple of times in history. So, and we've seen that,
but then it's not just our energy bill going up. If energy is expensive, everything goes up.
Right. Everything goes up.
Everything.
And by the way, the ESG policies, that also affects the nitrogen and the fertilizer, which is bad, not green. And then on top of it, the absurdity of thinking that we could rely on electric vehicles, which themselves consist of massive amounts of energy and dirty energy to get rare earths from lithium mines in China, mostly controlled. China almost has a complete monopoly on the production of all the materials that are involved in creating batteries, from the mines to the refining. And we don't really have domestic production of these rare earths. Certainly, we don't have the ability to refine it. So we're completely dependent on China for electric, and there's not even enough of it. We're going to be relying on countries like China and the Congo and places like that to get these rare earth materials, like that make batteries. Not only that, but how are you going to charge the batteries if you've got 30 million more people? They're already got blackouts in California. They're mandating or they're outlawing combustion engines. At the same time, they're telling people not to.
By 2035, apparently, we're
turn
all
off your air
supposed to
conditioner because they already have blackouts.
Yeah.
And then they don't want nuclear.
Basically, now I know when I can't live in California any longer. I mean, that's been my thing. I mean, obviously, they do other things like that I object to. But when they start blocking my utilities, I mean, when I don't have water and electricity, that's when I move, because, I mean, why would anybody stay here at that point?
Yeah, so it's really serious. And Europe is way further down this road than we are, because they're way more dependent. The United States is still in good shape. We still have domestic energy production.
Yeah, they're dependent, but they're also ideologically way further down the road than we are. I don't know why. I don't know how we ever got into our cultural zeitgeist that we want to be more like Europe. Why was that ever a thing? I know it's like a progressive dream. They're just Europe worshipers, starting with Woodrow Wilson, I think, right?
No, that was the main lesson that George Washington, the founder, says: don't get involved in Europe's affairs.
Oh my God.
That's why we all came here.
Europe is a dumpster fire.
We all left Europe for a reason. This is why.
Right. Okay.
Don't do what the Europeans do.
So let's, Doug sent me a tweet that kind of sparked what we thought we would talk about today. I'm just going to read it to you guys. I will show it on the screen, but Doug won't be able to see it here while I read it. Okay, here we go. It's from Daniel Schmidt, Real D Schmidt. Conservatives are this is a college student, by the way, a sophomore.
I don't see it on your screen if you're showing it.
Yeah, I'm just going to read it.
Okay, good.
And then I'll edit it in for everybody else. Conservatives are losing on college campuses simply because almost all of them are cowards and losers. Leftist students are openly and militantly anti-white, anti-Christianity, and anti-American. Meanwhile, conservative students hold book clubs where they read Milton Friedman. In my experience, the messaging of conservative students has been pathetic. Leftist students speak in simple, concrete terms, and they identify a common enemy: white Americans. Conservative students quote John Locke and Ronald Reagan. So, what did you think about that, Doug, that sparked your interest?
Well, the first thing I thought of, my knee-jerk response to it was, yeah, I think he's right. But there's a lot of different levels to this, because it can't just be courage. There's something else going on as well. And I mean, I think what he's getting at is not only the messaging and the marketing and the branding, of how we fight for our own values, but it's also the emphasis on morality, on moralizing or idealizing these issues. Like we were just talking about energy, right? What are these environmentalists been saying for 40 or 50 years? I mean, this has been a moral struggle for them. This green energy, you're destroying the planet, you're destroying Mother Earth. They anthropomorphized the environment. And they've been messaging this to people that as a religious kind of sacrifice, you need to sacrifice your own comfort for the sake of the earth and for the sake of future generations. So this has become a moral crusade, and people who are secularly oriented that don't want Christianity or some religion, they've glommed onto this because it's like, oh, moral idealism, and it's scientific. It's got this pseudo-scientific veneer. So it's kind of a genius.
We don't use that word anymore. We use the word Fauci for science.
Oh,
so it's Faucian.
It's Faucian. Gotcha.
Yeah, thank you.
But and what he's getting at here is, we're talking about the national debt. Now, the national debt is really important, but that should be, you've got to go way, way further back into the morality. Taxation is a form of slavery. When you steal money, when the government steals money from one person, gives to another, they're enslaving people. They're denying them property rights. This is the level, this sort of like the moral outrage surrounding the theft of your property and the enslavement of American workers to the government's largesse that's a moral outrage, and that's how it should be
phrased. We often want to make the practical argument that, okay, if you take my dollar, then you pay all these bureaucracies and you end up distributing it's not, you only end up distributing a cent. Why don't I just give my dollar to charity? And so we make those types of arguments.
Right.
But,
and look at how that's working.
Yeah.
Or, hey, look, Europe, you have no energy now, and all your people are starving and dying. And then
the WEF guys are saying, good. That's what we want to have happen. And it's hard for us to get our minds around that they actually do want that. But they're telling us that that's what they want.
This is a necessary transition.
Humans are an invasive species on Earth.
That's right. And that's why I like what Alex Epstein has done, the moral case for fossil fuels. He's moralized the argument, and he's taken it up to a philosophical level. And there's a few points that, no, fossil fuel, like he's oriented towards what do we do for human flourishing? So right away, he makes the argument about how do we make our lives better? And he's not saying, hey, I'm an evil ogre and I just want to pollute and dirty the environment and kill people for my profit. He's saying, no, I'm all about human beings being great and living great lives, and you're not focusing on all the benefits of cheap energy to that goal.
They're creating an apocalypse to so-called prevent an apocalypse, but they don't really care. That's what kind of is hard to understand. If a human apocalypse, they're fine with that. An Earth apocalypse, that's what they're not fine with, I guess.
Yeah, they take nature as an intrinsic value. So I don't even know what that means. I don't know what an Earth apocalypse is. I mean, the Earth's not going away.
When the Death Star pulls up and shoots a thing and the whole thing blows up, I would say that's an Earth apocalypse.
Yeah, like you always, it's look. There's So Michael, getting back to this like conservative thing, a lot of people chimed in on that thread, which was really interesting. And some of the comments were actually like, look, man, there's a lot more to this. Some of it is numbers. I mean, if you're in a university and the administration and the government and the courts and your professors are all against you, I mean, what do you it's like, what am I supposed to do? So some of this is organizing and numbers and things like that. But I really think so much of this is, even for like an individual, like look at what Alex Epstein has done almost single-handedly, just with the moral, focusing on the moral issue. It's reorienting all of our argumentation. Like, Shani, you sent me that Camille Paglia. I don't know if you have that handy.
Oh, where did I? But she was arguing. because I'll just pull it up from where I sent it to
okay.
you. Did I send it to you on? Okay, wait. Yeah, I found it.
Okay, great. I mean, this is an example of how you argue against pronouns. The whole pronoun thing.
All right, let me share this. The big long share screen pause. Here we go again. No, here it is.
Yeah.
Here it is.
This professor refused to use the pronouns that are being requested or demanded by transgender activists.
Yes.
Okay. Well, more power to him. Okay, is what I say. Okay, this is getting ridiculous. Okay, my PhD is, it took time to be absorbed. Okay, but this political agitation to change everyday common speech. Are you kidding me? Okay, all right. People shouldn't be putting up with this for 1 second. What kind of nonsense is this? Absolute nonsense. Okay, and these people who are searching for their own identity. Okay, and want to impose on others. That is not my philosophy of libertarian. That is an invasion and intrusion into other people's personal rights. So excuse us. The English language is owned, okay, by everyone. Okay, it was created by great artists, Chaucer and Shakespeare, and Wordsworth and Joyce and so on. How dare you sniveling little, maniac, tell us how we're going to use pronouns? This professor,
you sniveling little maniac.
I mean, that gave me goosebumps.
Yeah.
And that's the first time I felt that way about someone just saying the truth in a very passionate and moral way, that the language is created by artists, and you sniveling little, and of course, I'd say some vast majority of people, if you bring up this pronoun thing, my knee-jerk reaction would probably be, well, let me explain my position and blah blah. She's like, no, screw you, this is nonsense. I'm not going to take this for 1 second.
Your own quest to find your own identity and meaning, that's not my problem. Don't force that on me, and don't make the whole English language change to suit your fantasies.
I love that. I think that's the microcosm of what, and this is why we like Trump. Or the Trump style.
Right.
That's why we like DeSantis.
This is why we like Marjorie Taylor Greene. This is why and the sniveling little
and Kurt Schlichter,
who are supposedly libertarian types who can't stand this. Oh, it's not civil. It's not so. It's like, I just don't even know what to say anymore.
Yeah, this is why the libertarian
I don't even care.
Failed. Because they're economists.
I want to be in the foxhole with Candace, Trump, Marjorie, Tucker, Kurt Schlichter. That's the foxhole I'm in. I don't want to be with these other namby-pamby people who can't even speak up against racism. Like, they can't even say, don't fucking call white people names.
Yeah.
That's it.
Well, I don't want to offend anyone at work because I might lose my job.
Yeah.
And blah, blah, blah.
I don't want to offend the racists. I wouldn't want to offend a racist, would I? Oh my God. Yeah, no, that's great. But that is really hard to do. And I think there is a courage issue there. But on campuses, I would imagine you're getting it everywhere and from all sides constantly. You can't just be constantly fighting. You have to pick your battles. And as you've said in the past, you've gotten very tactical. You're kind of not really dealing with things on that level anymore, having arguments or trying, how do we integrate that where we're being tactical, but we're also speaking out?
Yeah. Again, my whole life now is tactical, and I'm just thinking, locally, I'm involved in a lot of political stuff, and I'm just thinking purely on how to win. How do we win?
But we win with the moral arguments, right? We win with moral certainty.
Yes. It's not mutually. I'm saying those two things go together.
Yeah.
When you see someone, a good politician, so to speak, like, we have to do anything to get them to win at this point. And I just want to win. We got to get these people out. These people are dangerous, and it's I'm just in other words, I'm not I'm when it comes to tactics or whatever, it's just solely how do we win this election, and how do we get these people out of there. I think we're in an existential crisis in the West.
It's not just political elections, though, either. It's school boards and things like that.
Oh, 100%. That's what I mean. I mean, it's everything. It's certainly the school boards.
And supporting journalists who are honest and rational and not communists.
Yeah, and it's going to these school board meetings and not being like, well, I don't want to offend anyone. It's like, no, we're not doing this, period.
Yeah.
Like, I don't care what your justification is for taking my kid to a transgender thing. No, it's not going to happen. And if you have to pull your kid out of school, or you have to fight it in court, or whatever you have to do, the answer is no. It's not an argument even anymore. It's no, we're not doing that. And that can manifest in a lot of different ways.
Yeah.
But I think I've seen this just, I've been in kind of conservative groups or Republican groups or whatever. And a lot of people are just, they're decent people, and they're not. And that's part of what I wanted to say about that thread is like conservatives being cowards. The left lives they live for politics and being on committees and telling other people what to do. Their whole life is oriented around
I think that's the thing
control,
is they love this shit. We don't love it. We hate it. We hate being on committees.
We want to be left alone. So we're naturally at a disadvantage. If you're the kind of person that already wants to be left alone and just wants to run your own life, and you don't want to run other people's lives.
I don't want to tell a transgender that they're messed up. I don't even want, I just want them to do what they want to do and leave me alone, but they're not leaving me alone.
Exactly. Yeah. And when you put it in my face, or you're trying to indoctrinate my family or my kids, then it's different. I don't care what adults do. I really don't.
Yeah.
As long as it doesn't affect me, I don't really care what consenting adults do in their own home. I'm a total libertarian when it comes to that.
That's right.
Now, do I think it's right or wrong? Yes, I might think it's morally wrong to do certain things, but I'm not doing anything about it, nor do I care. And I
personally do think that if you think a medical procedure is unethical, like let's say these surgeries for young people. I mean, Marjorie Taylor Greene has done a bill that would ban gender transformation surgeries for anyone under 18. That's a government step, telling people what to do. But I do feel like there has to be some protection of kids.
Yeah, well, I think in the same way that, we say kids can't drink until a certain age.
Do you think those are correct laws?
Kids can't get married.
As a libertarian type of person?
Yeah, I do, because I think there's development. I think kids go through a development. I mean, and you do have to protect kids not only from themselves, but from bad parents who would allow their kids to drink at 4 years old or do coke or, whatever. Right. And yeah, there's a line I think you have to draw.
I think you have to be really careful stepping in between a parent and kid. But I feel like I don't even, if a woman is caught slapping her child, say in public, she could lose her child, but she can have their breasts removed, and that's fine. And a doctor will do it and sign off on that. I don't know. I
saw a doctor online that's done over 8,000 of these surgeries, and he charges like $10K per surgery. So he's made tens of millions of dollars doing this, and they love it. I mean, these are the sick people.
I think I saw that too. And what struck me is that same doctor was talking about, he views these surgeries as, he tries to get in the mindset of 30 years from now, and that this would be like normal. And you would just go on. He called it a gender journey.
Mm-hmm. A journey. It's a journey. Gender journey.
What a soft way to say, cut your boobs off. This is a traumatic surgery. Any surgery. I don't know if people are thinking too abstract about this. Why aren't they present in what that means to be butchered, literally hacked up? A 12-year-old girl having her breasts hacked out of her body and having permanent pain and scars in that area, never being the same, never having sensation in that area.
Well, that's the frightening thing, is that this is coming out of the medical profession. We're seeing like actual medical institutions.
Yes.
The American Pediatrics, they're greenlighting this stuff.
But I thought the mentality of saying, well, 30 years from now, this will just be like, it'll be fluid. You'll make a decision and you'll go to a doctor and it will just be whatever you want. And so he tries
let's do that in 30 years then.
He tries to put himself in this 30-year from now mindset when he's chopping breasts off of 12-year-olds. And I thought that is such a progressive way of thinking of the world, that somehow 30 years from now, things will be better because they're just progressing to it, everything being better. And that there would be this time when you could have these procedures and they wouldn't be painful and they would actually lead to some sort of perfect utopian sex change, but we just don't have the technology now. But let's act as if that's coming.
Well, talk about begging the question. I mean, he's taking the premise that what he's doing is moral and projecting that out 30 years. So let's assume that everything I'm doing, like mutilating children, is going to be accepted in 30 years as the moral thing to do. So let's do it now. I mean, that's his argument. Instead of saying, wait a second, is this the right thing to do now? Why? Who cares about 30 years? It's not the right thing to do now. Kids are not in a position to determine this.
Yeah.
Nor are their parents.
I don't know why this has to even be said. It's so weird to me.
I'm so sick of even being in this position. Of like,
would you have thought 2 years ago that we'd be talking about this and having to say this? I don't know.
Someone said that to me the other day.
May get demonetized because of the subject matter. I mean, I'm sorry, it's not monetized. It may actually get pulled down because of the subject matter. Okay, the last thing I want to do is play this Project Veritas clip. So this is a vice principal who admits that he doesn't hire Catholics because Catholics for sure are conservatives. Not that he's against Catholics per se or Catholicism, but that for him it's a screening tactic to automatically screen out conservatives, whereas other Christian religions you never know. Like a Protestant you wouldn't necessarily know, but a Catholic for sure. And what I really wanted to play for you is this moment where he talks about getting past parental objection. And I think we should all hear this.
I can't get past the parents anymore. So because
oh my gosh, what is going on with my...
Then what do you do with the Catholics?
He says, I can't get past the parents anymore.
I can't get past the parents anymore. So because I can't get past the parents, do I really have as much of an influence on the kids as I want? I try in my own way.
How evil is that? Did you catch that? I can't get past the parents. Do I really have as much of an influence on the kids as I want? What a monster.
But right now, my job is to hire the right teachers. Teaching them how to think. That's it. Doesn't matter what they think about it.
By the way, so he says here, we're teaching them how to think. I hear a lot of people on the, good people, libertarians saying, teach a child how to think, not what to think.
Right.
This leftist twerp means teach them how to think in the leftist way.
A logical, progressive way. Like that's the same thing.
That's what he means. Listen to him.
If they think about it in a logical, progressive way, that becomes a habit.
So you kind of like veered onto thinking a more liberal way.
I believe hopefully the more progressive teachers are actually more savvy about delivering the democratic message without really ever mentioning politics. It's subtle. They'll never say, oh, this is a liberal or a democratic way of doing this. They just make that the norm.
So he knows he is 100% conscious that he's hiring teachers who are Democrats, who are subtle, who know that what they're saying, they don't ever mention that it's Democrat or liberal. They just make it the norm. They just make it the norm, quote unquote. So he's telling you he's conscious of the tactic of making these things normalized, even against the objection of all these parents. And that's how they do it. And he's conscious of it.
Yeah. I mean, it's diabolical.
Have you, I mean, you kind of think sometimes that it's just sort of, they're just doing it. They're not super conscious of doing it.
Oh, no, I never thought that.
Oh my God, they know what they're doing, you guys.
This is how we handle things. It's subtle.
And that's how you get away with it?
That's how you get away with it.
That's how they get away.
And how do you make sure the parents don't find out?
They can find out.
They can
as
find
long
out
as
what
you
we're
never
doing.
mention politics.
We don't mention politics.
And then later down the
and we've
line,
normalized it. And so then we can shame them as being weird and abnormal. And what are you talking about? Right?
Well, there's a deeper point to this mindset, which is that he equates logic with progressivism. And so this is why they consider conservatives to be subhuman, because conservatives, this is why a liberal, the liberal attitude towards conservative is, how could you think that way? That's not logical. That's not natural. No one would ever think that way. You must be crazy. You must be mentally ill. You must be a monster to think the way you do. I mean, this is the tie-in, because to them, their way of thinking is completely normal and natural and logical. And so they then can take and cast any right-wing person as being not just wrong, but as being subhuman and that needs to be disposed of or liquidated, or purged from society.
Yeah. So that's where we live.
So
all the conservatives need to be put under conservatorship. We should have a progressive advocate.
That guy should control our lives. That principle.
Definitely my kids. I mean, he definitely knows better than I do. And
he's logical, he's progressive, same thing.
He is Faucian and I am not. So Fauci science, he
is the school. He is education.
He is education. Creepy times.
Yep.
It's really hard to believe that we're here so fast. I don't know. I know it didn't happen all at once and things build up and then they just kind of, it seems like it happens fast, but it's happened over time. But it really is falling off the cliff now.
Well, it's like the old saying, it's taken me my whole life to become an overnight sensation.
Yeah.
This thing has been building and building and building, and then it blew up. So
I think we're going to win though, because do you know how Ayn Rand says, if you have reason on your side, you're going to win. And I mean, I think of that. You have to fight, obviously. But when I look out at the landscape, I think I've said this before. The people who can think are all on our side at this point. And, there are a lot of people like Camille Paglia making that type of moral argument now. And it's interesting that it took Trump to kind of make that okay on the right. But there are so many people now who are speaking out. And I think it's just getting more and more and more. And it's getting more okay to be tough and uncompromising with the left. I think prior to this, it's like, well, if we just compromise, it'll be okay. And here we are, with them basically having the power. I read this article this morning that was kind of interesting to read. It's in a Substack. Okay. It's on a blog called The Upheaval at Substack, and it says, it's not hypocrisy. You're just powerless. And do you know how you and I have been? We're just like, oh God, not the hypocrisy argument again.
Yeah.
Because they're hypocrites. Yeah, they know it. They don't care. And the only reason to make the hypocrisy argument is for our side to be morally emboldened, to know that they're making this moral argument and they're hypocrites. So they don't really mean it. They're not really moral. So I think it helps us push back against their moral argument with our own moral argument to know that they don't mean it. I don't know why, for some reason, to cut our understanding or belief in their sincerity morally, that helps our side fight, but it doesn't help us win anything because they don't care. And this article just says it like it is, which is we just don't have any power. So they're doing whatever they want. We're like the Japanese serf who's the samurai can do whatever they want to us. And if we object, he'll just cut our head off on the spot. Like they don't need to, oh, you're a hypocrite, chop your head off. They don't care. Right. They have the power. We are the serfs.
It's like, oh, wait, you're flying a private jet to a global warming summit? That's hypocritical.
Yeah. How dare you?
It's sort of like the Pope's all about, uplifting the poor, and yet he's living on a throne for 1,000 years and controlling Europe. Like, that's hypocritical.
Nancy Pelosi is a Catholic, but she's pro-abortion. That's hypocritical. Like, she freaking cares. She's a master thief. She doesn't care. And she's a progressive, and progressives have the ideology that backs them up that says, whatever I do is good and whatever they do is bad. And she has power. She can just chop your head off when she feels like it.
Yeah, they'll just raid your house. The FBI. I mean, exactly. That's why, it's time we got to take this to the next level.
It's all about power and getting power back. And the article mentions that it used to seem a lot more that the other side wasn't so kind of unabashedly hypocritical. That's because they didn't have as much power. Their power was balanced more, and so they couldn't be that way as much. But now they have total power over the media and Hollywood, and in politics, they have a lot of power. So it's just, especially with respect to the law enforcement, as we're seeing, Washington.
Well, look at every communist and socialist regime. They never suffer from too little hypocrisy. I mean, the whole thing is about, right, communism and the communist utopia, yet they take over the state. They have stores for party members. They live richly.
They get their fancy food while everyone else starves. Mm-hmm.
Exactly. They're just it's a new court. It's a new emperor. It's a new nobility.
It's exactly right. That is exactly right. It's a new nobility. That's all this is. So either you are going to be ruled by these people, or you're going to get your own self-governance back. And so really they don't matter in the sense that there's no reasoning with them. There's no calling them out. There's no being nice to them. It's like you said, there's just say no and just start putting our foot down and saying, no, this is not, we're not doing this.
How dare you?
Take your power back. Don't grant them the premise, this benevolence that they mean what they say. They're just in power and they're just lording it over you and your kids. That's it. It's come down to that. It's just a power game. Ideology is interesting and everything. It obviously runs the world long term, but we are in a state where we just have a ruler that we need to fight and depose. Right?
Yeah. And I think that's almost always the way it is.
Yeah. Seems like it in history.
Takes different forms. I mean, you're either ruled or you're in control of your life. It's one of two states. And most of human history, 99% of human history, you've been ruled by someone. And it seems like we mean revert. Like we have these episodes of, we have some self-governance here, and that lasts about 5 minutes, and then people start jockeying to be the emperor again.
Yeah.
So
either fight for self-governance or fight to be an emperor, because being the serf sucks. Right?
Yeah, try and be
Maybe
the
we
emperor.
should go with start supporting the new monarchy and join that club. And then at least we'll be in the echelon, the top echelon.
Yeah, we'll have our country estate, our dacha. Is that what they call it?
All right, everybody, that is our show for today. Uplifting as always.
Yeah, we try.
We try. Let us know in the comments what you want to talk about.
We're negative people. Maybe that's what it is. We just think in terms of risk. We're like accountants.
Conservatives.
Yeah.
We're always planning for the worst case scenario.
Yeah. Yeah. We're like accountants.
I'm kind of like that. I'm always
What's
scanning for what could. I'm very good at predicting things. So I'm always scanning to predict, to try to figure out what's going on, what I need to do to mitigate that. It's kind of a constant theme of my life. So I'd like to stop.
All right. Well, we'll see you next week.
All right. See you next week, everybody.
It's filled with satire and fun. It's been the demise of bad ideas, and we'll know what's right when she's done. So download this free podcast now and give perspectives you may lack. It's concise and right and achieves world peace, guaranteed all your money back. Last time, ready?